Good morning. And I thought I'd begin today by looking at a comment from Roland's Girl, who says, please look at UN Resolution 3743 of 1982. It gives colonized people the right to resist occupation, including by armed struggle. Much of it refers to South Africa, but it explicitly mentions Palestinians. Resolution 3817 of 1983 reaffirms this. It means that the whole attack by Israel on Gaza, early attacks, and all atrocities on the West Bank are illegal. Now, one should acknowledge the essential truth embedded in that quotation. International law does indeed recognize the right of occupied peoples to resist occupation. The General Assembly Resolution 3743 of 1982 affirms the legitimacy of people's struggle against, quote, colonial and foreign domination and racist regimes, including by armed means. It was drafted during the era of apartheid South Africa and was consciously extended to the Palestinian cause. Resolution 3817 the following year, after reaffirmed the principle. However, there's two critical caveats immediately. The first, that such resistance must conform to the laws of war, specifically the Geneva Conventions and Additional Protocol 1, which prohibit attacks on civilians. Armed struggle is not a license to massacre. The right to resist doesn't nullify the obligations of jus in bello. And the appalling murder of over 1,200 Israeli civilians on October the 1st, 2023, including children, the elderly and young festival goers, cannot be justified by reference to anti-colonial resistance. It was not a guerrilla operation against military targets, it was terrorism against civilians. Second, if the right to resist is acknowledged, it doesn't provide legal justification for states, let alone occupying powers, to act without limits in return. And this, I would argue, is the primary illegality that should be marked out today. Israel's military campaign in Gaza, its ongoing actions in the West Bank, are not proportionate acts of self-defense. They are, in the words of the late Israeli jurist Yoram Dinstein, a former bellum ultio, war waged in the spirit of retribution rather than necessity. As Gideon Levy recently observed, resuming attacks on Gaza is not only a crime but also immoral. And the overwhelming preponderance of civilian deaths, the starvation siege imposed since March 2025, and the deliberate targeting of medical infrastructure suggest a strategy that goes well beyond neutralizing threats. Indeed, the International Court of Justice has already issued 3 sets of provisional measures in the genocide case brought by South Africa, orders which Israel has openly ignored. The International Criminal Court has issued arrest warrants for both Israeli and Hamas leaders for war crimes and for crimes against humanity. And that mutuality of criminal liability doesn't imply equivalence. It simply underlines that atrocity is not the monopoly of one particular side. To return to Roland Girl's comment, she's quite right to point out that the whole attack by Israel on Gaza stands on dubious legal ground. The blockade, the destruction of civilian homes, the denial of food, water and fuel, these are forms of collective punishment outlawed under Article 33 of the Fourth Geneva Convention. They also undermine Israel's own claim to be acting in self-defense, because self-defense cannot be premeditated or conducted with such wanton indifference to civilian life. And the occupation of the West Bank, now 57 years old, has long passed the point of any legal justification under temporary belligerent occupation. The recent UN advisory opinion of July 2024 confirmed that Israel's presence in the West Bank is no longer lawful and that all settlement activity must cease. But I don't think we should abandon moral clarity for political convenience. Hamas's indiscriminate rocket fire, its placing of fighters within civilian zones, and its long record of summary executions, repression and hostage-taking must be condemned, also without qualification. Amnesty International has consistently noted war crimes committed by one party never legitimize war crimes by another. This is not a seesaw of grievance, it's a mirror of shared brutality. So, where does that leave us? It leaves us with a pair of truths that are uncomfortable but indispensable. Truth 1, that Israel's conduct in Gaza and the West Bank, including the disproportionate use of force, starvation as a method of warfare, and the systematic settlement activity is illegal under international law and likely genocidal in its effect, if not in its proven intent. Truth 2. Hamas and other Palestinian armed groups have committed war crimes and possibly crimes against humanity, both in Israel and against their own people in Gaza, including the suppression of dissent, the mistreatment of hostages, and the use of civilians as shields. These two truths don't cancel each other out, they coexist. And they demand independent international accountability, not partisan indignation. So we should, as the philosopher Avishai Margalit once put it, be decent before we are just. Justice without decency becomes vengeance, and vengeance in the form of bombed hospitals and murdered kibbutz families has no place in a world governed by law. To that end, I would return to the phrase used by Roland's girl, one may deplore the killing of civilians. I would suggest that we should do more than deplore it. We must name it, prosecute it, and cease to excuse it, whether perpetuated by the boot of occupation or the gun of resistance.